Sorry, guys, some of the difficulties. My daughter has got an. Yeah, I know. My daughter got in and touched some of these buttons and that before she went to sleep. So let me know if you guys can hear me now clearly. If you can hear me clearly, hopefully we're on. We Are Live says Islam versus Dariush will be the fight they make. Maybe. Ooh, that's a crazy fight, because after seeing that fight, I don't know that Islam necessarily gets past Dariush. Dariush is, I think, Islam's a better wrestler, but Dariush jiu-jitsu is no joke, and Thiago gave him all he could handle. Like he gave some really really good like he had a few really, just a sec, sorry. Um he gave some really good moments there in that fight. He gave some really really good moments. Talking about Thiago and Darish's jiu-jitsu, he's like won world titles in jiu-jitsu and whatnot. So he's got very, very serious jiu-jitsu. And if he gets on top, I think he can create quite a bit of problems there for Islam. And the other thing that I didn't see with Islam, although his striking is good and it's fluid, I don't know that he's got enough striking to overwhelm someone like Dariush that's as as well rounded as he is and as weathered as he is. Now, if you're asking me who's going to win that fight, my pick is Islam. My pick would be Islam. I was very impressed by Islam, and I was very impressed by Moraes in his loss. To be honest with you, he had some really good moments there as well. But yeah, I'm I was impressed by Islam, but I saw certain things there that I think see for those wrestle heavy grappler kind of guys, I think someone like Darish now, who Darish is today, can pose some really real problems there. Um, but I'm really interested to see that fight. Um, we are live. The snake is back this week. Thank you, sir. Um, So okay, We Are Live says Jeremy Stevens disappointed me. Wanted to see him bang. It's a funny thing with Jeremy Stevens, for the reputation that he has as a knockout artist. He's actually got very few knockouts. Like, he doesn't have that many stoppages like as you would think for someone with that reputation. I think that a lot of that came with that knockout of Dos Anjos. Uh, We Are Live says, but that Polish dude took his arm home with him. He did, didn't he? Fuck. Gamrot's very good though. He's a very, very good, very, very good wrestler, very good grappler. Very, very impressed with him. So Tasman Andrew says we can hear you. So yeah, no, that's, I suppose that's the interesting stuff that happened. I don't know, for me in that fight, there wasn't huge amounts to take home from that card, other than the main fight of the evening. I was really impressed with Islam. I was impressed with his ability to just keep on the game plan and not get caught up in other things. And then also, Moraes is very Thiago has very good jiu-jitsu, and Islam handled it very, very, very well. And you could tell just by the positions that Islam was getting into, and how well, how well both of them were grappling on the ground. But Islam was always one or two steps ahead, and it was very, very impressive. I don't know who they give next, or what they're going to do there. I don't know. I'm very Thiago Moises was, in my opinion, like, he didn't really win any of the exchanges, but he just stayed in there, and he showed some good levels of technique, with especially he got a takedown on Islam and whatnot, which wouldn't be easy. But I wasn't like the Drew Dober fight. I guess it kind of gives you an example of where Moises is at, because you saw him fight. You saw Islam fight Drew Dober, and he completely ran through Dober. And I think that also set the expectation really, really high for what you thought um, Islam will do. The other one that interests me as well, the fight that interests me that's coming up is Sandhagen versus Dillashaw. That's a big one that interests me, and that's interesting to me. I think because the enigma there is I don't know how Dillashaw's coming back. I don't know what he's going to be like. I think he's a little bit older as well, and if he's minus the performance enhancing drugs plus age, I don't know. Normally, under normal circumstances, if it was the Dillashaw that I've seen before and whatnot, I'd probably back Dillashaw in that fight just simply because um, I know that people saying like Sandhagen has beat him up in training and whatnot. Training's different. The same thing was said about I think they saying that about Cody that he beat up Dillashaw as well at training and knocked him out or whatever, and it doesn't mean anything. Um, and I see, yeah, I saw the fight with Moraes with Marlon Moraes and Sandhagen. While Sandhagen won that clearly, Moraes was able to put him to do a few things, to try a few things, and to show a couple of things that I think TJ does better than Moraes does very very well. Also, TJ doesn't stay in the pocket. He doesn't stay in the pocket, and he doesn't. He sets stuff up. He knows how to move stuff. His footwork's very good. I don't I don't know how. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think he's going to be there for Sandhagen to hit him, so to speak. So I don't know. It's an interesting one for me. I find that a very very interesting fight. The big enigma for me is where is Dillashaw going to be at because he's been out for 2 years. He's over 30. He's had more than allegations. Like he was guilty of taking not some drugs but all of the drugs. And I wonder how he's going to come back. I wonder if he's just going to keep going with I wonder if he's going to keep taking the performance enhancing drugs. I don't know. It's a very interesting thing for me. I don't know. I wasn't that impressed. I don't know the card itself. It wasn't my favorite card. I'm not going to lie to you. It had some good fights. I'm just going to go through a few of the fights now, but nothing. Misha Tate versus Marion Renault. Man, she won. She beat her, but I don't see how she's going to beat someone like yeah, Amanda Nunes or anyone like that. Randy says, "Glad to catch you live, Fab." Thank you, Randy. Yeah, I don't see how she's going to beat anyone like that. I don't know. Um, like just the person I saw, maybe it was the ring rust. I don't know what it was. Again, can she come back from that? Can she improve from that? Maybe she gets into a groove. I don't know. But it wasn't, in my opinion, it wasn't like a fantastic thing. I'm really keen to hear what you guys have to say on the fights, and we can have a chat about it. It was interesting. I mean, there were some fights there that the Gamrot fight versus Stevens fight, that was a very interesting fight as well. Gamrot was all over him from the start, and he did such a good job with it as well. I thought that Stevens would have a little bit more for him on the ground, but he was massively outclassed. With Gamrot, he got the takedown, and then Stevens went for that Kimura on the far side, or a version of that Kimura on the far side. And it's hard whenever you don't have those legs locked down. It basically um, allows you to jump to the other side for the armbar or the Kimura itself, and that's what Gamrot did. And he did it like bang, bang, bang. So he was super impressive. Rodolfo Vieira showed improvements with his jab. He did show some improvements with his jab. His jiu-jitsu is off the hook 100%, but it's not his jiu-jitsu, it's his application of that jiu-jitsu in an actual fight. He is fantastic, an absolutely fantastic fighter, and I love watching him fight. But I just don't know how he's going to deal with the upper echelons because he's not young. He's not 21 or 22 years old. And I don't know how much more we're going to see improvements in him. I'm not saying we can't. I just don't know. Some says Dillashaw is getting old now, especially for the bantams where speed is so important. I'm so glad you say that as well. A lot of people don't realize that you don't see you see strength and power, the last components of fitness to go. And that's why you see heavyweights fighting on, that you see them continue to fight later and later. But like speed, power, your reflexes and that in the lighter weight divisions, they go first. And so a guy like Dillashaw, he's superbly technical, and his application of that technique, and he's also very tactical, not just technical, he's very tactical. But I do see that age, especially coming off performance enhancing drugs, should he even be allowed to fight? I don't know. You know what I mean? For spending that amount of time. But I think he's also had to sit out a couple of years of his peak, which you probably won't get to see. You didn't get to see that him at his absolute peak, and that's where I think the Sandhagen is, advantageous in that sense. Although he's not a spring chicken either, but the fact that Dillashaw is coming off drugs and he's coming off that, I don't know. That one's a real enigma to me. What I was saying about Rodolfo Vieira, I liked it. I liked his jab. I liked the way he'd shown that he'd improved it with his jab. But even you can see it in when he gets hit, the composure. I hope that the composure improves more. Because once if he gets the striking, if he gets his striking and his grappling to be in sync, because he's sort of either striking or grappling. When he's grappling, dude, you don't want that guy on top of you, man. That guy's a monster. He's an absolute monster. But you don't want, when he's striking, he's worked on his jab a lot. He's got a good little jab that he's working on. But there's still a lot of things there. You can see the composure's not quite there when he gets hit. You can see that he's still a little bit stiff with his movement when he's striking. And I don't know how that's going to fare with the upper echelons of that division, because there are some stone cold killers in that division with very, very good hands and very good takedown defense. So that one was an interesting one for me. I was impressed with Vieira. I'm always impressed with Vieira. I'm a huge fan of Vieira's. He went in and he did the job, and he showed improvements, and he showed better pacing, and he showed his ability to still do his job, still go for the fight to the ground, get the submission and whatnot. But he was much more composed in how he did it. So I was pretty impressed with Vieira. I thought the Billy Quarantillo fight versus Gabriel Benitez, that was probably, I don't know, off the top of my head, probably fight of the night for me. Benitez is tough as they come, but he took so much damage in that fight as well. I don't know what the reports were at the end of it. I don't know if he broke his eye socket or what. But yeah, it was pretty brutal, man, that fight. Billy Quarantillo showed that he's the real deal, and he's got real skills, and he's got good fight in him, good chin. Benitez showed a fantastic chin in that fight. Yeah, so I don't know. I'm not sure. Oliver Ekman says, I am here, Fab, not to fear. Thank God you're here, Oliver. Thank you, my friend. Yeah, so I don't know. I don't know where, like, when you see other cards and you go, okay, this is what's next, etc., etc., etc. With Islam, I don't know anymore. Like, not anymore, but I don't know exactly where that puts him. I think somebody said Dariush. Dariush is an interesting fight. Dos Anjos is an interesting fight. Although Dos Anjos doesn't fare the best against wrestlers, he doesn't do that well against wrestlers. So I think that Islam beats Dos Anjos. I'm interested to see him fight Dariush, to be honest with you. Randy says, "How are you today?" I'm doing fine, Randy. I'm okay, mate. I'm okay. I didn't sleep the best last night. My daughter kept me and my wife up all night. But I am here, and that's what's important. So yeah, I don't know that. See that fight and the Misha Tate versus Marion fight. Again, I don't know exactly what that one will do. Oliver Ekman says, Randy, what do you do for work? Nice. What do you do for work, Randy? Um, yeah. So again, I don't know with the Misha Tate one. I don't know what the reception to that fight has been like by the powers that be and whatnot. I don't know if they're saying I don't know if that's meant to get Misha up into contendership or whatnot. I don't know. I'm not entirely sold on that. So yeah, I don't know. The Dillashaw card, next week's card as well. It doesn't. Nicholas is right. Says I believe Islam said in the post-fight presser that he thinks Dariush is too big a step up for him. I believe Islam said in the post-fight presser that he thinks Dariush is too big a step up for him. Really? Well, that's very interesting, man. That's very, very interesting. I I didn't hear him say that. I didn't listen to the press conference. It's interesting that if he does have that mentality, if he's thinking that, I wonder, like, he's smart then. Do you know what I mean? Not because I don't think he can't beat Darius. I think he's being brought along slowly, and um, the I like it. It's a very systematic approach. I think that you don't want to push him too fast, too early against some of the upper echelons of the competition, because I think there are some really good guys at lightweight right now. Um, so I don't know that he's too big of a step. I don't know that he can't handle him, but that's a hard fight for him. You know what I mean? It's a really hard fight, I think. Hanoi Tripper says, "Hi Fab, did you talk about Hooker and Islam yet?" No, we haven't. Please do. Please discuss it. I honestly think Hooker's probably one of the worst matchups for Islam at the moment. I said it before. I think Dan Hooker's got, whilst he lost the fight to Poirier, I think Poirier and him, all right, they could split a few fights. Maybe Poirier beats him more times than Dan beats him. But the thing with Dan is he moves more fluid than Poirier. He's got much better like movement in and out, and he's much more evasive. When they fight each other, it's a little bit different because Poirier, while he's still like kind of plodding, but he's got good hands. He'll take the shots. He'll come forward. He's always very, very fit. And like Coach Mike Brown said, he's got probably the best wattage in the uh, lightweight division. But having said that, Hooker can take damage. He's got good jiu-jitsu, good takedown defense, and he can strike. And he can move on his feet. He's not plodding. He's got a good arsenal of strikes. He hits hard. I think he's a real bad matchup for Islam, in my opinion. That's me. Please tell me what you guys think. I don't know. Yeah, I never heard him say anything like that. I don't know that he blatantly come out and say it, but yeah. Oliver Ekman says, Fab, do you think the winner of next week's main event gets a title shot at Bantamweight? Can you give Dillashaw a shot? What do you guys think? Should Dillashaw even be fighting? Let's go. Let's say he goes out and ices Sandhagen, just smashes him. You'd have to think he'd be right up there. I think Sandhagen's number two, you know, and he's going straight into that, into the belly of the beast, so to speak. So, it is what it is. Like I don't know. Some says Poirier was saved by the bell after round one in that match. He admitted it in the press conference, the knee to the head. Yeah, 100%, man. 100%. But end of the day, dude, there is a bell and you do fight rounds. That's it is what it is. I think that Hooker is more fluid with his striking than Poirier, you know. So I don't know. Yeah, and going back to the Sandhagen thing and Dillashaw, you'd imagine he would be. I mean, all of that aside, let's say that he's there now. If he beats Sandhagen, yeah, I'd say he does get a shot at the belt. I'd say they'd have to run Sterling and Yan back. I don't know what they're doing with that, and then he would have to fight the winner of them, I suppose. So yeah, no, that fight Poirier and Hooker. I watched it again just the other day, and it just seemed like Hooker. Hooker had some really, really good moments in that fight, really good moments. but that pressure from Poirier where he just keeps coming and keeps coming and keeps coming and keeps hitting and keeps coming and keeps hitting. It kind of just, you know, wore Dan Hooker down a little bit. You know, I think Hooker's, I've always said it anyways, I think Hooker's a bad matchup for a lot of people in that division, you know. Um, every matchup just about that I think Dan Hooker's like a bad matchup for him. You know what I mean? Not the matchup you want. Aiden Long TV. How are you, Aiden Long? Aiden Long was a student of mine at Macquarie Fields TAFE, the People's Champion. How are you, sir? I think TJ Dillashaw would make a good comeback. Corey is also a very interesting fighter, similar style, awesome clash. I think Dillashaw has really, man, Dillashaw at his peak, I think would beat Corey. Corey's real tall, man. He's like my height. You know, he's like meter 80, 5'11", 6 foot, and fights at bantamweight, man. He's a tall guy. He's ex-basketball player. He's got good footwork, good athlete. But Dillashaw, man, when he was at his best, his ability to move in and out, switch stances, hit you from different angles. He had so many tools in the tool belt. You know, for a guy that grew up wrestling, to have that level of striking that he does and the fight IQ that he does is very, very impressive, man. Oliver Ekman says, I think they should have gone back and tested TJ's other fights. If he only took the EPO to get to 125, then maybe give him a shot. I don't know. Man, if he didn't take EPO just to get to 125, come on. Come on, Oliver. Come on, mate. And then even then, it doesn't matter. It does not matter. It doesn't matter if you took it for that or for this or for whatever. You know, it's insane, dude. Like you think about people, you got two fighters, you know, all things being equal, you got two fighters here, and one of them, so you got two fighters here, one of them fights the other dude, they have a close fight, he wins, he goes he not only that day does he get the bonus, does he get, let's say he knocks him out. He gets a $50,000 bonus now at 75. He gets an advancement into his career. He might win the next fight, and his career has gone this way. This guy loses his win bonus. This guy got the win bonus plus the bonus for knocking him out. Doesn't get a bonus for getting knocked out. Doesn't get his win bonus, so his money got halved. Then this fellow here, might lose his next fight because every fight's 50-50. Now his career's gone, and this guy's gone. And a lot of the stuff, when in elite sport, man, is circumstantial. You were there that day. It happened the way it happened that day. You took advantage of it. You jumped on. You won. Who dares win? That's what happens. So when you're fighting and for anyone that's in it that knows the game a little bit, if you test positive, dude, and it's like you're testing positive in fighting like that for something that's as fickle as no holds barred fighting, mate, you shouldn't be allowed to fight, man. You like the difference that you're taking is huge, man. Because it's binary, you know what I mean? It's one or the other, you know. There's only two things, other of course than a draw, but really you win or you lose. And there's such a massive difference in the UFC for winning or losing. It's not like you're playing basketball and you're going to play 82 games in a season, and whether you win or lose or whatever, you're still on your contract. No, you get paid on what you win, on if you win or if you lose. So the penalties don't even come close to that, man. And the rewards are so much bigger if you Sorry, man, I'm pretty passionate about that because it ties back into fighter pay. What I was going to say just then, because with the fighter pay, sorry, I'll come back to this. With fighter pay, what people don't realize as well, the pay is so low that it's hard for you to get even like champions, you know what I mean, or guys that heading up to champions. It's hard for you to pay for good coaching, good staff until you're at a certain level, you know. So you got to hope that people are going to take and don't say to me, oh, you can go to this team or you can go to that team. That doesn't mean that they're the best team for you. You know, you could put a team together of people that you've never heard of that are great. You could go to the Australian Institute of Sport and get the head strength and conditioning guy he'll be better than anyone that you'll know of, you know, but you don't know who he is. So what I'm saying is, as an athlete, you're trying to put together a team, a good team that fits you and is working for you. You can't do that if you're getting paid 15 to show, 15 to win. Do you know what I mean? Like it's very, 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 very difficult thing to do. Um, so yeah, the fighter pay, it's so low, man, that it's hard for you to even put a team together. It's very, very difficult. And hence why I'm saying, like, when you lose, one guy goes boom, and now he's got more money and he's got more things added to his disposal that he can use, and the other guy's just gone all the way back down. So winning gives you a couple of years, you know what I mean, on top of it, like gives you more money, you're able to reinvest in yourself, get better drugs. It's a massive thing with the winning and losing. Joseph Feely, thank you so much, sir. Really appreciate it. Says, do you think McGregor needs to take on lower ranked opponents to recreate his magic streak? UFC keeps on giving him the top guys for his return fights. The problem is, it's like being a champion, right? If you're a champion, you got to fight the number one guy. You have to fight the guys that's coming up, especially in the UFC. There's no non-mandatory defenses like you have in boxing. In boxing, you don't you have like a mandatory defense you have to make, but you can fight guys that aren't the number one contender. You might have two depending on your contract. Then you have to fight the mandatory guy. So the problem with McGregor is that he's a massive draw, and he may as well be the champion. With how massively promoted he is, and you have to be able to get behind a narrative, behind a storyline, and the UFC is very good at that, and they're very good at promoting that. But it's going to be hard. It's a double-edged sword, right? You got to find the guy that McGregor matches up well with. Like, with all respect to him, nothing against him, but Cerrone matches up well with McGregor. Cerrone's a guy that is a late starter. McGregor's a fast starter. Cerrone doesn't do that well against southpaws. McGregor's a southpaw. McGregor's a fast starter, hits hard as well. Cerrone kind of takes some shots early on, and that's when McGregor's going to give you those shots. Not saying that Cerrone's not a great fighter. He's a fantastic fighter, and some people match up better with others and vice versa. But Cerrone and McGregor is not going to be a good matchup for Cerrone. So that works in their advantage. That works in their favor. So when they lined McGregor and Cerrone up, you can create a story. You can create a narrative. Cerrone's a big name in his own right. People are going to tune in to watch that fight. The problem now is, even were you to create a story, for argument's sake, let's say you say, who am I going to put him in? Who am I going to put him against? Let's put him against Brad Riddell. What if Brad Riddell outstrikes him? And Brad Riddell isn't a huge name. I think Brad Riddell will outstrike him. Brad Riddell isn't a huge name. Now McGregor's lost to a guy, I think, if I'm not mistaken, Brad Riddell might be in the top 15. So I'm asking you, how far back do you want to go? Do you want to give him Gregor Gillespie? Does he beat Gregor Gillespie? I don't know. And you have to create a narrative, and then you have him losing to the number 14th guy. What happens then? I don't think they can do that. That's what's going to be very hard for McGregor. McGregor will sell. He'll sell, but at some point, you got to wonder, those guys that I just said then, Brad Riddell will beat him, I think. I think Dos Anjos might be a good matchup for him, I think. Maybe, because Dos Anjos might be getting a little bit older. Maybe. I wouldn't write Dos Anjos off. It's some hard matches, man, there. Who are you going to match him up with? Hooker, I believe Hooker beats McGregor badly, like Poirier did. I don't see Charles Oliveira. There you go. Charles Oliveira will be an interesting fight, he and McGregor. Because McGregor, I think, early on in the fight, has a good chance to starch Oliveira. Very good chance. That's more an answer to your questions, not like more so what do I think they're going to do. I just think it's very hard now. Like, it's very hard to, and I get exactly what you mean, to build that momentum. I think it's very, very hard with that, like that, with McGregor because you have to give him big name fights. You can't, you know, it'd be hard for you to just start bringing people through like they did, you know, for him to start his run up the food chain like he did in featherweight, which, man, he is one of the biggest names in sport. So it's hard to get him, guys that you think he's going to be able to beat. Oliver Ekman says, "I'm sorry, the kombucha's getting to my mind. I'm not thinking straight." They've checked Randy's credentials and he came back clean. Hungarian Hustler says, "Hey Fab, I'm sitting here with our little one and listening in. I'm having trouble getting him back to MMA classes after school holidays. Can you let Noah know why it's important to be doing his classes?" Mate, Noah, one, I think it's fun. That's a number one thing. You should go somewhere where it's fun. Number two is you don't want to get into fights ever at school or anywhere else when you don't want to get picked on. And the best way for you to do that is for you to know that you can defend yourself. And in the words of the great Ralph Gracie, one day someone is going to try and take something from you, and you're going to have to choke that motherfucker. That's what he said, and it is true. Hopefully, it'll never happen, Noah. But you want to be able to defend yourself so that nobody ever puts it on you. And it's fun. More than anything, it's fun. You get to train, and when you get a bit older and you can train with your dad more, it's fun. My daughters, they're already training. Well, my one, the other one's not born yet. Sweat Lord says, "How many people on the roster do you think get away with using PEDs?" I'm gonna say to you, like, there are some guys that I know they're on it. Like, I know, not, oh, I think they're on it. I know they're on it. I'm gonna say, and when I say this figure, it might not seem like a lot, but I'm gonna say to you, 20% guaranteed, 100%. And the guys that are fighting late into their career, I haven't seen, not heavyweights, maybe not heavyweights, but those guys that fight late, past their late 30s kind of thing, and they're doing well and they're just getting better. I haven't seen one of them that hasn't had some sort of positive test against them, and that's with that piss poor testing. You know what I mean? I haven't seen anyone that I can think of like that doesn't, like, that hasn't had some sort of black mark against their name. So anyone I think that's got the funding and that trains. This is another thing. Like, I've spoken about it before. Any of those guys that have gone overseas and done a camp. When I say overseas, I mean somewhere like, I don't want to say a country because then people are going to say, "No, you're just talking about this guy or that guy." I'm not talking about anyone. Even when I said the older ages, I'm not pointing to anyone in particular. I'm just saying you go and do your own research and look who's tested positive and match up what I said. Those guys that are doing really well in mid to late 30s or whatever, nearly all of them that I can think of have at some way or for whatever reason tested positive. So any of those guys, any of the guys that's got a bit of money behind them and a bit of clout, it's not hard to pass a test, man, because it's a fucking IQ test. Like, you get 3 strikes. So if, say, for example, you come and I'm training someone here and USADA comes through the door and they say, "Oh, I'm here to test Billy." And I say, "Billy's not here. Billy's training in the Swiss Alps." That's a mark against his name, but that he doesn't, nothing happens to him. He gets 3 in a year before that happens. And you can microdose on testosterone, like, where it clears your system in 24 hours, 48 hours. And usually they don't come back straight away. So if you tell Billy, "Hey Billy, ease up on those gummy bears." That's one. The other thing is, if you train in another country where, say, for example, look up some countries, man, because it's like where the average wage is $100 US a month, right? And so you're not getting tested by USADA, or in Australia, ASADA, who would be in like an auspice of USADA. Here, you'd be getting tested by pick, not I'm not being smart. Pick third world country, right? That you're training in, that you've set up your camp in, and their average sum of money a month is $100 US. Right? These people that are coming and test you is not USADA. It's not ASADA. It's they're testing people under like an auspice of USADA. So you do the math yourself. If you're someone that's taken your whole camp over there, you can afford to do that. If you really think that you can't sway the testers, it's not hard, man. And you wouldn't even need to. The person would fucking shit themselves anyways. Like what some of those guys would be making in the upper echelons of the UFC is an astronomical figure for them. You know what I mean? For that person's coming to test them. So me just having said everything that I just said then, yeah, I'd say 20% fucking guaranteed. 1000% guaranteed. And that's a huge figure because 50%, Oliver Aikman said 50%, and I agree 50% as well. But 50% is a big number, right? 50%, like I don't know, there's 600, 800 thing, maybe 400 of them, could be, but 20% is huge, and when you're thinking about when that 20%, I'm also saying the 20% would be top heavy too. It wouldn't be, because the guys that just come in that don't know what they're doing, they're going to get caught. They're the ones that get caught. They're the cannon fodder. But it'd be definitely top heavy, the 20% that I'm talking about. I'm not pointing fingers. I'm not saying anyone in particular. I'm not saying the champions are on it. I'm not saying any of that stuff. I'm not saying that champions that train overseas are on it. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that if you were to do it, that is how you would do it. That doesn't mean that people are doing it. Luke says, is there a way to get a contract that pays 100% regardless of the result with the UFC? No, they don't do that. Nicholas Bright says, Joseph Feely, technically Nate and Cowboy were tune-up fights. Meant to have been, yeah, like what we spoke about that with Cowboy. Oliver Ekman says, John Jones used to have one like that. He was getting 500 no matter what. I think it's kind of rare, though. Yeah, no, that's a different contract, though. You're talking about John Jones as a champion. He wasn't on that money as a non-champion or whatnot. Their contracts are a little bit different. If you've been a champion and now you're not a champion anymore, your contracts are a little bit different. There's different stipulations in that. But when I think the questions being asked is by Luke, is there a contract that pays 100% regardless of the result? That is not for the mainstream. Like you're talking about, there'd be a handful of guys that were ex-champions that would have certain contracts like that, depending on how much they draw and whatnot. Luke said, I think DJ had a flat fee contract. Again, like I said, yeah, he would have got whatever and blah, blah, blah. But these are not, Demetrius Johnson was the best flyweight ever. Do you know what I mean? We're talking in general with people. No, that's what you get. Some says, honestly, everyone wants a Conor versus Tony can be the battle to break a losing streak. I don't really want to see that fight, eh? I just seen there's nothing there selling Tony to me versus Conor. You know what I mean? I don't see him beating Conor. I don't see him lasting against Conor. They could make that fight. I mean, they could, but no. Oliver Ekman says you got a kid on the way, Fab. I do, sir. I do. Joseph Feely says McGregor only has one win at lightweight. It looked like Poirier could eat his punches much better at lightweight than featherweight. If Conor wants to be the champ again, maybe a drop down to featherweight. I doubt he would cut, though. I don't think Conor will see featherweight ever in his life again. I don't think he can make the cut anymore. And some says Volk would ground and pound him into oblivion. I agree that Volkanovski would beat him. What I disagree with is that it'd have to be through ground and pound. Like Volkanovski at featherweight would give a lot of problems to McGregor. He's a guy that he's very smart. He understands the striking game really, really well. He's really got really good tactics. He's got the threat of the takedown. I don't know that that's the way that it would necessarily go versus him and McGregor, because Volkanovski hits hard too. You know what I mean? So he's smart, man, and he's got a good team behind him. So I think it wouldn't be easy, you know. Nowadays as well, man. Now you got Max Holloway there as well. Max Holloway's not even the champion at featherweight. I don't think that McGregor in a 5-round fight beats Max Holloway today. Look who Max Holloway is now. I don't think he beats him. I just don't see him beating him. You know, not now. Not in 5 rounds. In 3 rounds, I pick McGregor versus Holloway, to be honest with you, because I see him being able to crack Holloway, you know, in the first couple of rounds enough to win 1 or 2 rounds, you know, and hurt him. Not necessarily put Max away because Max got a granite chin, but Max's distance, his knowledge of distance now versus the first time he fought McGregor is completely different. And how active he's been, I don't know. That's what I'm saying. Like in a 3-round fight, I can see McGregor maybe dropping him or hurting him or getting the better of some of the exchanges and winning maybe 2 rounds of the 3. In a 5-round fight, no, I don't. No way. I just see Max slowly and gradually just plowing, putting the volume on. 1 foot out the door says, "Screw the Tony Ferguson or RDA fight." You're talking about McGregor, right? Um, yeah, I agree with you, man. I don't really, yeah. Um, I'm not sure 1 foot out the door what you mean. Um, okay. Sweatlord says Gordon Ryan talked about his possible transition to MMA. I personally think he wouldn't make a big splash, especially with UFC heavyweights, but he's only 25. What are your thoughts? I don't know, man. I don't know if he fights at. I don't know if he'll fight at heavyweight. I don't know what weight he'll fight at. It's he. I mean, he would. You look at Gary Tonin. Gary Tonin's doing really well. Gordon Ryan has made a lot of money doing jiu-jitsu, so he's got access, and he's got access to the best coaches. Best coaches. I mean, that's a subjective term, but they're definitely up there. Um, I think he's got a fantastic team of people around him, and he's got all the money to be able to bring in and train with whoever he wants as well. So, and no one is going to be able to deal with him on the ground. So I don't know. I really don't know. Giga versus Barbosa is going to deliver. Yes, sir. Yes, it is. Herbert of before says, also, what's your favorite weight class to watch in UFC currently? Big love, my man. Right back at you, sir. Thank you so much. What's my favorite weight class to watch right now is the bantamweights, man. I'm really enjoying the bantamweights. I'm a huge fan of Peter Yan. I really, really like watching that guy fight. I love his style. I love his boxing. I love the way that he incorporates takedowns as an offensive weapon to keep people from taking him down. You know, it's not something that you see a lot of people do. Uh, so he wants to keep the fight standing, and you know, he takes people down. You know, he did that to Sterling. He did that to Sterling a bunch of times. He didn't want to go to the ground with Sterling, but he still did a lot of outer reach trips, a lot of very, very smart, man, because it tires you down as well. You know, tires the other guy down because you think every time that Sterling would shoot and he'd get stuffed or he'd get stopped or it wouldn't work out, that taxes him. Every time that Peter Yen drops him and he has to get up, that taxes him. You know, not a massive amount, but enough. And tactically makes you stop and makes you start pausing, and he wants you to pause so that you can't take him down and he can get his striking off. And now you're not just watching, oh, when can I get in and strike? He's not being passive with it. He's being aggressive, and he's being proactive and not reactive. So he's defending the takedowns by doing takedowns. So I love watching that guy fight, man. I really, really do. Um, the other guy that's to watch is Imavov, that guy at middleweight. He's he lost the decision to Phil Hawes, but I feel that had he have done a few different things, he could have given Phil Hawes more trouble than what he did. He's going to be a very interesting fight this weekend versus Ian Heinisch. I don't know who wins that fight. I really don't. That one, again, not disrespecting people or anything, but they're the two fights that I want to see this weekend. Is it Imavov versus Heinisch fight and the Corey Sandhagen versus TJ Dillashaw fights? They're the two fights that I really want to see. I'm sure there'll be other good fights on the card, but they're the two that I'm pumped to see. Herbal before says, "Hey Fab, for fitness, which is better, safer for an older guy to train, BJJ or Muay Thai? No sport, no sparring in Muay Thai. Muay Thai, Muay Thai. I love grappling. You know, I love it, but like I need double knee replacement. I'm 41. I'm not even that old, but my knees are shit. My knees have always been shit. And grappling, where I'm going to grapple, even I'm going to grapple light because fucking people don't grapple light. BJJ is hard on your body, dude. Like no matter what people say, you're grappling. It's for real. You're grappling. Whereas Muay Thai, you can hit the pads, you can shadow box. Um, there's a whole bunch of stuff you can do, and you're not going to smash your body. You know, you're not going to smash your body. Whereas if you train jujitsu, train jujitsu, you know, you can. It depends what level you are as well. Like even though my knees are shit, if I grab a guy that I know that's pretty good and da 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 da, I can roll with him. Like I'll roll with some of my friends that I know, you know, and I can have a good little roll with them, and it's okay. But I would not go to join a jiu-jitsu gym now and roll with people, and it's there's a risk. They hold up like when you go, and man, I ran jiu-jitsu gyms. I'm probably going to open another one. You know, just so he understands that people think, oh, he doesn't like jiu-jitsu. No, dude, I'm probably going to open a jiu-jitsu school. I'm just giving you the fucking. It's probably my fourth grappling school I'm going to have. You know, so just to give a proper perspective, um, you hold up the people that you go, look, this guy's 65 and he's been doing jiu-jitsu and there's nothing wrong with him, da 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 da. Yeah, that's cool, but you don't have 40 of those guys on the mats. You don't have your gym, I can guarantee you, is not made up of 100 students, 47 of which are over 55. That's not true. You know what I mean? That's not it's not accurate, you know. Um it's a lot of fun, but I just think there's contact, person to person contact, and that makes it really hard, you know. That makes it really hard. People can roll on you, twist your fingers back. It's full fucking contact jiu-jitsu. Whereas Muay Thai, if you're not sparring, dude, and you're just hitting the pads and the bags, there's no fucking contact. So that one's the safest one for that reason. Herbal before says, also, what's your favorite weight class to watch in UFC currently? Big love, my man. I answered that one. 1 foot at the door says, Islam next fight. Um, Islam versus Benil Dariush or Hooker. It looks weak for him to call out Tony while avoiding Benil. I mean, yeah, I think Islam versus Benil or Hooker, get it done, man. I'm sign up and watch it. Joseph Feely says, I swear Islam could probably be the lightweight champion a year or so. He has a grappling of Khabib with pretty powerful striking. He's climbing to the top fast. Yeah, but right now, dude, there's a murderer's row there at lightweight. I think it's a tough one. Again, I don't have shares in the Dan Hooker company or anything like that, but I just think that he's one of those guys that like he hasn't he's always the bridesmaid, never the bride kind of thing. He's as good as the champion, you know what I mean? Like he's a fucking hard day up for anybody there in that lightweight division, and he's not ranked in the top 3 or 4. You know, I think he might be ranked 4 or 5 or something like that. I don't know. You know, so fucking hard gauntlet you got to run through there. So I think Islam, yeah, potentially he could be, but it's a tough time. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Okay. Herbal before says first question was best and also safest for fitness for an older guy, BJJ or Muay Thai. No sparring for the Muay Thai. I answered that one. Fab, without prying too much into your injuries, what advice would you go back and give 16-year-old safe self to stay safe and train lots in your older age? I wouldn't have been able to stop my knees thing, like because my shin doesn't sit on the articulating surfaces of the femur. So that's what it is. It like not never has, And as I gotten older, like when I was younger, man, hubris of youth, you survive, it's all good. Um, and as you get older, though, all the injuries start to happen and the wear and tear, and I'm still, man. If I had to roll, like if you tried to take my kebab off me or something, and I'm walking down the street, it's gonna be fucking on, and I'm gonna be able to still roll. I can still roll. Like if I had to run, I could. If I had to roll, I could, but it's not good anymore, money. Like it's things. So I'm just looking after myself, and it kind of is an answer to the next one. Is what would I do? It's kind of what I'm doing now. Just I was always pretty strong, so I did weights and all of that. So the joints and that was strong. But what I didn't do enough of, and I wish I did, was stretch. And the advice that I would give to anyone is stretch and look after your knees. What I didn't do enough of is stretching, and that's what I'd say to everyone. Like stretch as much as you can. Put a systematic approach into your weekly schedule where you can stretch. Stretching and doing mindfulness. I wish that I'd understood that more as a young man, and I didn't until much later in my life. Like proper understood what that was. Um, and I still haven't proper understood it, but I'm in a much better level of understanding of it right now. And so they're the two things that I would say to my younger self. One foot at the door says, gonna be 40 next year, fathering these millennials daily. It's embarrassing how soft these young guys are. I think every single generation says that though, man, about them. Um, One foot out the door says, was shocked Chandler dropped him shortly before he landed a real hard kick on his calf. Um, Man, Hooker did a great job in that fight. Like people as well. Man, he did a good job. People just like to shit on people. Hooker did a good job. He landed that calf kick, but the other guy's not a fucking punching bag, man. That's why people go, oh, but then he got knocked out. Well, fuck, man. Like he's fighting a guy. Chandler's not a pussy. And I'm not saying you said any of that. I'm just saying like Hooker landed that kick, and the way that Chandler was setting up that left hook, mate, that was money. He set it up so well, man, so well. He dropped Charles as well. Like that fight could have gone either way, with Charles as well. Um, Luke says some of these unranked guys at 155 could win the belt today. The top 30 is full of killers. Yeah, 100%. Top 20 at least at lightweight is pretty good, man. It's pretty good. One foot at the door says I'm all over the place multitasking. Help me out. What exactly are we talking about here? Oliver Aikman says, I guess 1 foot out. Okay. Greetings, Christian Lorenz says, greetings, Fab. Do you have a favorite KO this year so far? Ooh, I don't know, man. I don't know. Not one that comes to mind like that. I don't know. Maybe if you guys can tell me some of the ones that you guys think, but yeah, let me know. Brutus M says, Fab, ¿qué pasa? What contact sport did you first try? How old were you when you started BJJ? I was about 19, 20 when I started BJJ. And my first contact sport, I would say Taekwondo and rugby league around that age. Taekwondo probably I was at 5 or 6, maybe 6. And rugby league, I would have not proper played it, but I would have been introduced to it at a very early age. Back then, you could play like tackle football for lunch and stuff. So yeah, those two things. Joseph Feely says, I agree, Luke. Lightweight is stacked, especially the top 5. It's hard to say that one guy is much better than the previous. That is 100% true. I see lightweight being very, very difficult one right now. Like there isn't Charles hasn't got the belt and held it and kept it for 3, 4 fights. So you don't have that champ that's pulled away like Khabib was or other champions are. So you don't have that yet. And then all the other guys are like, Dustin Poirier versus Charles. That's a crazy fight. You don't know who's going to win that one. You put Hooker in there, you don't know. But then, dude, this is what's crazy. You get Gregor Gillespie and you bring him up, and he's a tough fight for any of them. uh, Dos Anjos, Islam, Brad Riddell. Fuck, you get some good guys there, man. Salah says, Fab, who would you favor between Riddell versus Hooker? Obviously, that fight will never happen, but curious to hear your thoughts. I'd have to favor Hooker because Brad Riddell, and I'm a massive fan. This is not so, and he only lives in New Zealand, so don't go fucking say that I said something and then he catches me out and beats a fuck out of me. So that's not what I'm saying. But for how great his striking is, he's gone to decisions with Cedric, with the Immortal, with knocked out Wayne Parr, like you know. But for all of that, for all of his striking, he doesn't have a lot of knockouts in on his resume, especially in MMA. And Hooker's very durable. And Brad Riddell, his takedown defense is very good, etc. Da, da, da. But I just see Hooker as being more experienced, in MMA, more experienced at the top end. And I think he could give Brad Riddell some serious, serious headaches, that even in the striking. But I think overall in MMA, like I think Hooker will want to take it to the ground, will want to get it to the ground, and he'll start to create more problems for Riddell there. So if the two in a fantasy matchup like that were to happen, I would say Hooker today, right? They fight in 2 years. I don't know. I don't know. In 2 years, you don't know where Brad Riddell's MMA will be at. It looks pretty fucking good right now. One foot out the door says, why gambling on MMA is psychotic? Absolutely, sir. Guys, if you haven't already, please hit the like and subscribe and hit the notification bell. So please do that for me, guys, because that helps immensely. I'm just going to put something up. Sorry, just a second, guys. The Jiri KO over Reyes was, yeah, man. B. Johnson, I have to agree with you. That was a crazy KO. That was crazy, man. That was a crazy fight. See, Jiri's got a thing, man. He's got something that like there's a thing with him, like an aura, like that he's bringing forward. Sandhagen's flying knee of Frankie Edgar, another massive one. 2021 has been a wild year in general, says Christian Laurent. I agree with you, my friend. Christian Laurent says, of course, I'll never forget your reaction when Francis slept Stipe. That was a bad one as well. Oliver Eckerman says, Christian Laurent, did you see his reaction to the Conor leg break? Man, that was bad, man. That was Dustin Poirier knocking out Conor. I don't know if that was 2021 though. We Are Live says Riddell is too small. He's not that small, dude. I've seen him a few times in real life. He's just got a different build, man. He's just like a little kind of nugget put together little guy. He's not like, whereas Hooker's like long. Hooker's like my size. He's got long arms and he's tall. But Riddell's like a short nuggety kind of dude. Christian Laurent says all the reactions are amazing. We'll need a side-by-side compilation one day. If you guys want to pull one together, that's awesome. I'm just being me, mate. Joseph Feely says, anyone have hope O'Malley could rise to the top in the next year? I'd also be interested in seeing how he'd fight at featherweight. He's quite thin at bantamweight as it is. Look, I don't know with him. Because that's another division. I can't see him beating Aldo, right, at bantamweight. I don't know. There are some tough matchups for him there. I'm not saying that he can't ever rise to the top. He's such a young guy, so it might take him a few years. I just don't know. I haven't seen. This is the thing I always say about Sean O'Malley. I haven't seen him do anything in his fights that I don't already know that he can do. Like what I saw in his last fight against Chris, I already knew he could do that. I expected him to do that. Which, don't get me wrong, was a fantastic performance, but I'm expecting fantastic performances from him against guys of that nature that are new to the sport and whatnot. This is not an insult. Now, if Sean O'Malley goes out and does that to Jose Aldo, this is a different story. And that's, I'm not saying he can't. That's just what I want to see. I want to see if he can. That would answer some questions for me. Um, I've seen him do what I know he's going to do. That's all I'm saying. Um, sorry, I'll skip a couple. We Are Live says Paul Felder beat Hooker, I reckon. It was a close fight. It was a close fight. I agree with you. David Morris says, you mentioned mindfulness. Did you mean as distinct from the mindfulness that comes with sport physical activity? I find that I'm at my most mindful while exercising, cooking, gardening, etc. I think there's a number of things with that. It's like understanding, because one thing is like people will say, you know what's good for anxiety? Go and roll jiu-jitsu, go and do this, go and do that, and blah blah blah. And that's more like that's dialectical behavioral therapy, and that's great. It gets your mind concentrating on something else, and you're not concentrating on this. But also just being able to be still in my own mind and understanding how to compartmentalize certain things, understanding how to find that time, that space in my day, um, and being able to just concentrate on my breathing and slow everything right down, which has great benefits, for you in the reduction in the size of your amygdala, in your ability to process your thoughts, so all that kind of stuff. But David Morris, I'm the same as you. Like if I'm doing physical activity, training, whatever, but it's a little bit different because when you're doing that, you're focused on a task, right? So then everything else goes out the window, and that's what it's actually called, dialectical behavioral therapy. Um, it's really, really good, really, really good. But it's not the other stuff as well, because I was already training. If I understood mindfulness and meditation, whatever you want to call it, but if I understood that, I think would have helped a lot. People would say to me, but I was like 20 years old, 20 years old, yeah, fuck whatever. But I didn't get it. Now I get it. Same as the stretching. Um, Joseph Feely says, same Oliver. O'Malley has a very unique style. I think his kicks and unorthodox striking could be a decent recipe to mowing through the bantamweight division. Interesting. Well, like I said, I just said it a second ago. I think he can, but I haven't seen him do it to anyone that I didn't think he was going to. You know what I mean? Um, Salah Ahmed says, do you feel like Islam lost any hype after that fight? He completely steamrolled Doba in an exciting fight, but Moises made him look a bit lackluster, in my opinion. Yeah, look, I think the 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 actual thing, if we're gonna look at it objectively, the quick answer is yes. I agree. I think he did. But the real answer, if you look at it objectively, is this: if he hadn't had that performance against Drew Dober, and you didn't know who Islam was, and you said, "See this guy Thiago Moises, he just ankle locked Michael Johnson in his last fight. He's had some tough fights. He's good. He's a real good grappler. Watch this guy. He's got good jiu-jitsu. Just watch him." And you see Islam do what he did, then you wouldn't. You'd be like, "Holy fuck, this guy on the ground is a monster." Um, so that's where, like, because he had such a good performance against Drew Dober, you expected that level. You know what I mean? You expected that. Um, and I think he did do a really good performance against Moises. It's just that you wanted to see him go from Drew Dober, his performance against Drew Dober against a very good fighter in Drew Dober, to being like, I don't know, do 1994 Guile from Street Fighter 2 Invisible Throw on Moises. That's what we expected. Because I have that same feeling as you. Like, but you know what it is? It's kind of like when you've had a good burger somewhere and you go back the second time to have the same burger, and you've told your friends and everyone this burger's fantastic. But when you get there the second time, the burger's good. But the first time, for whatever reason, like they did it off the hook. The second time, it's still a great burger, but it's not what you thought it was going to be. Um, and it's like that with Islam. I think he did really, really well, really, really well. You're just expecting him to go up another level after the performance against Dober. We Are Live says Dan Henderson Bisping to the dark depths of hell with his H bomb and falling elbow to make it even worse. That was bad, dude. Um, Max Burner says, "Rest in peace, South Africa. So much looting and killing." My thoughts are with the people of South Africa for sure. Oliver Ekman says, "I think my favorite spinning elbow I've ever seen was the one Fab threw against Robin VR boxing." Christian Lorenz says, "I usually stream the fights and turn the sound off and have a Fab commentary playing on the other tab." Thank you, sir. I really appreciate it, man. It's very flattering, and I really appreciate you guys. You know, Oliver Ekman says that should be law at Christian Lorenz. Luke says, "Masvidal KO of Till is one that I've always found really brutal." Honestly, I was just thinking about that knockout the other day. And I realized I was thinking about that the other day. I realized that for whatever reason, that knockout replays in my head. Like I'll be doing something, and that knockout comes to my head. Um, it was sickening the way he fell and his head smashed onto the floor. It was sickening. It was a sickening knockout. Um, Joseph Feely says, "That's fair. O'Malley hasn't given really any challenging opponent so far. Part of me thinks the UFC might be afraid of pairing him up with someone too hard and thus destroying the Sugar Show hype." And this is the thing, dude. This is the thing. When I'm not being critical of O'Malley, I enjoy watching him fight. And I don't think he should be pushed much quicker either. I don't. You know what I mean? I think he's a young guy. Man, nurse him along, bring him along. All I'm saying is that I know that he can do what he's doing. I haven't seen him do something that, it's like if you said to me, Khabib out grappled one of his opponents, I'd be like, yeah, I know. I've seen him fucking do that. Um, okay. One Foot at the Door says, Jiri versus Israel. Interesting fight. Salah said, "It's not even the skill in question for Sean for me. I feel like he's not durable. Jan and Aldo was a war of attrition. I just don't see Sean even coming close to be able to survive those fights." That's kind of what I mean as well. Like I just don't see him saying a 5-round fight or even a 3-round fight with someone like Aldo. And Aldo, well, we haven't seen Aldo's leg kicks for a long time. I do believe he's going to dust them and bring them out of the closet if he has to fight Sean O'Malley. And I don't see Sean taking those leg kicks for 5 rounds. You know what I mean? 3 rounds even. Like I don't. He could catch Aldo with something because Aldo's kind of like, but I see Aldo just kicking the shit out of his legs. Um, okay. Sorry, guys. I'm just going to skip a couple. Fab, did you like Pride fights, and would those rules be better for the UFC? I did like Pride, and I like Pride. I liked Pride more back in the day. Back in the day, not necessarily now. Um, well, obviously, there's no Pride now, but I'm saying like the sport has evolved beyond what Pride was and what UFC was back in the day. They've both evolved completely past it, and there's no Pride now at the moment to think. The closest you have now to Pride was probably ONE FC, but they're nowhere near what Pride was back in the day. Um, do I like those rules? I like elbows on the ground. I really do like the elbows on the ground. I like the cage more than the ring. Um, I like head stomps and soccer kicks. Um, I like the front headlock, and you can knee. I like those rules. So I think an amalgamation of the two would be interesting. Um, the problem with stomps, I think, for the UFC is you get your head caught against the cage, and somebody stomps you in that kind of right angle there. If your head's caught, they're going to kill you. You know what I mean? So I don't know that we should have stomps in the UFC when you're fighting in a cage. The ring's a little bit different. Um, Soccer kicks, I think you could do them. It's not that easy to soccer kick someone. People think it's easy. It's not that easy. You kick wrong, dude, and you're breaking your foot. Um, so yeah, that's my take on that. But I like elbows on the ground. Christian Lorenz says, along with Punahele Soriano, yes, he's a good fighter and fighting this weekend. And Adrian Yanez, all young fighters on the rise. Yes, sir. Joe Schmo says, evening, gentlemen. How are you, sir? Takumi says Islam's need to fight a big name. Well, I think he's getting there. I think that's what they're working towards for sure. Oliver Ekman says, I had no idea Drew Dober had such a lengthy record. Yeah, he's been around for a long time. Mixed Partial Fart says, what's up, Fab? I was really impressed by Islam's performance again. He seemed to be waiting for Moises to Gasek and overpower him with a sub eventually. He very like that's why I said before, like, yes, sometimes it can seem like it was a lackluster performance because you saw him against Drew Dober, and against Drew Dober, he just looked like when you saw that fight against Drew Dober, you just thought, man, he's going to run through everyone at lightweight. Whereas Moises gave him some different questions, to give different looks, and he dealt with them really, really well. And one of the things, and I said it while we were watching the fight, tactically, man, he just stayed in the zone. He just kept doing what he knew was going to work, and what was working. He didn't lose his shit. He didn't, he didn't force anything. He didn't force anything. If Moises put him up against the wall, he didn't spaz out. He's all right, I'm up against the wall, doesn't matter, da 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 da. And he just kept doing it. I was really, really impressed. So I agree with you, Mixed Partial Parts. One foot at the door says Dagestani handcuffs ain't no joke. No, sir, they are not. Doug Smith says everyone's saying Islam isn't Khabib, but I really like how Islam is extremely patient and calculated. They're very different fighters, dude. They're very, very different fighters. Like their tactics are the same. You know what I mean? They want to eventually get you on the ground and beat you on the ground. How they do that is different. What they do once they get you on the ground is different. Islam is very like he'll hunt submissions. He'll risk a little bit of a position for it. He's very positionally orientated though. He wants those mounts. He wants to take the back. Whereas Khabib's is much more. And again, when I'm saying this, I'm not calling Khabib not technical. Okay, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying Khabib is more meat and potatoes in his approach. In that he's going to come forward, he's going to throw a bomb, and then he's going to shoot. Whereas Islam's going to have an exchange of striking with you, and then he's going to shoot. And Khabib's going to come forward, he's going to throw bombs, then he's going to take you down. When he takes you down, he's going to tie you up, your legs, then your arms, and then he's going to keep doing this until you're tired and you can no longer defend his ground and pound. And then he's going to smash you. And if he can't smash you, he's going to smash you some more. And then he might go for a Kimura or a submission of that nature. But generally, he's just going to do that. And it's really, really, it's those techniques with high pressure. Whereas Islam is looking for different positions, different submissions, and you're getting tired defending him, and wherever the fight goes, he's comfortable in going with you. He's not really forcing it. So it's a really, really interesting guy to watch. Both of them watching them together and that they train together is even more interesting to watch. Shevchenko versus Shevchenko should have gone to jail for that. I'm skipping a few. We Are Live says Misha Tate's comeback ain't going to end well. I don't think she's ready for a Nunes or the upper echelons, Christian Lorenz says the flying knee to Askren's face by Masvidal is legendary and is engraved in my memory. That was a bad knockout. Along with the follow-up shots, possibly the greatest KO in the modern era. It was a bad KO, dude. That was brutal. That was absolutely brutal. Okay. Islam versus Rob. Are you talking about Robert Whittaker? Islam versus Robert Whittaker? Islam's a lightweight. Rob's a middleweight that could fight comfortably at light heavyweight. It would be ugly. Would have been nice says, do you think a 165 division should exist and who'd hold that belt if it existed now? The problem is, right, MMA still relatively new, right? You still see some divisions, something happens here or there, and then you'll have 2 or 3 guys that just run away with the division. Middleweight's a good example of this. It was heavy at one stage. You had all at once, you had Romero, Jacare, and these guys were in their prime or close to their prime, right? You had Romero, Jacare, Rockhold, Weidman, Natal, you had Uriah Hall, Brunson was there, Brunson's still there. You had Rob coming up. You had Gastelum coming up. Israel wasn't even there yet. Um, Tim Kennedy, Michael Bisping. You had all of these guys. And then just overnight, it got old, you know? And now you have two guys, Rob and Israel, and they've run away from the competition. No disrespect to the competition. I'm not saying that the competition can't come back. I'm not saying that it's a foregone conclusion if Rob or Israel fights these guys that they're going to win. That's not what I'm saying. But technically, on paper, those two guys have run off with the division. Um, and you still see that in MMA. You know, you still see that, and you still see that happen across a few divisions. So I think we're not at a stage where if you have a 165, so it's between 155 and 170. I think we're still at a stage where you're gonna, like, you're kind of thinning out two of those divisions, you know. So it could be anyone from those two divisions could win it. You know what I mean? So I don't know that. I think, yes, the more weight divisions the better. You know, and there's guys that would do really well in the 180. You know what I mean? 180 division or thereabouts. But I don't know that we have like the depth yet to have strong competition at that level. You know, you don't want to. You also don't want to have a guy now winning three belts. You know, he's going to hold all three belts of that division. He hold the 155, 165, 170. Could do. You know, I don't know. I don't think we're quite there with the depth yet. Um, Oliver Ekman says, I think Usman will hold that belt. Would have been nice. Marshall Part says, for some reason, Kane JDS 1 is burned in my mind when JDS knocked him out in 69 seconds. Yes, I remember that. To become world champion. JDS's run to the title was arguably the best, but unfortunately, he lost it in two fights. That was a crazy time. I agree with you, man. One foot at the door says, knees to the head on grounded opponents would alleviate those who play the game. It would. It would. Luke says, in my opinion, up kicks to an opponent on their knees should be allowed. I agree. Um, Jason Correa says Shogun had some iconic wins in Pride with soccer kicks. They were insane. Shogun's soccer kicks were fucking crazy, dude. Joseph Feely says, any thoughts on Adesanya dabbling more in light heavyweight, or is he going to just stick to middleweight for good? I don't know. I think Adesanya is very good. He could fight at light heavyweight easily. The thing, just a sec. The thing is with Adesanya fighting at light heavyweight, whilst I still think he'd be very, very successful, he does lose. Um, he does lose some of the mechanical advantages that he has at middleweight. It's not that he can't win. It's not that he can't, you know, get better with it or whatever. But it's he does have a mechanical advantage at middleweight, and it's very, very clear. He's a very, very strong guy as well. Like, people talk about it. I'm sick of always having this stupid conversation, but people think he's a small middleweight. He's not a small middleweight. He only walks around 91 kilos, 92 kilos. Maybe. Have you seen him at that weight though? He's fucking skeleton, skin, and muscle. That's what he is. So it's not just how heavy do you walk around at or how heavy do you get back at. Look at his body composition. The guy is walks around 93 kilos, 94 kilos, and he's shredded, lean, athletic, you know. Um, so he's got a lot of mechanical advantages at middleweight. That at, like, say for example, Reyes, Jiri, um, Jan, all those guys at middleweight, and I mean at light heavyweight, sorry, have the same mechanics. Like, you know, they're all tall, they're all long, they all got reach. You know, so he loses a lot of that. He loses a lot of that mechanical advantage. Doesn't mean that he can't win. Doesn't mean that he can't make adjustments. It doesn't mean that. It just doesn't have the same advantages there. We Are Live says Islam was playing with his food and enjoying the airtime on ESPN. I didn't see it. Oh, 1 foot at the door says Henzo up kicking Oleg into next week. I remember that one. Oliver Aikman says Cain Velasquez versus Antonio Silva one was brutal, bloody 1 round fight. Yes, sir. Mixed partial fight says Fab, would you like to see Islam fight beat next? It depends, dude, because I think they're bringing Islam up slowly. You know what I mean? I don't think they're trying to get him to fight. If they really wanted to push him, they'd be pushing him to fight. For in the way before this because he's got like 8 fights in a row that he's won. Um, I'd like to see him fight Hooker or Brad Riddell. That'd be an interesting fight, or Gregor Gillespie. One of those three guys. Gregor Gillespie would be a real interesting fight though. Or Brad Riddell would be interesting as well because Brad Riddell um, would have the better striking. I'd be interested to see how that goes, the grappling with Gregor Gillespie. And I don't think he'd have it all his way. I don't think he'd have it all his way, Islam against Gregor. And Hooker is a big test, man. Hooker's a big test. And a big name for those that know, you know what I mean? He might not have all the followers that the other guys do, but he's a big fucking name, as in, like, if you're a fighter and you're in that division, you know who Dan Hooker is. Um, Salah says, I find it interesting how Khabib is a double leg, single leg kind of guy, whereas Islam prefers trips and sweeps from the clinch. Well, Khabib, in fairness, is a kind of like more nuggety guy than Islam, you know. So I think that's where those single legs, double legs, lifts are going to be easier for someone like of Khabib's build. Um, okay, we are live says Whitaker needs you, Fab, to help him cut to 155 pounds. You should. You should just cut off one of his arms and a leg. Okay, Luke says I think the idea of a 165-pound division also means that 170 would become 175. Yeah, still like it. If then that becomes 175, then that changes things as well. What happens with the 185? Do you leave that there? Do you add other divisions? I don't know. I really don't know. I don't know that. Um, like I said, do we have enough fighters to split it? Maybe we do. I don't know. Um, Brutus says, Fab, when you were a lower belt in BJJ, how often were you submitting higher belts? And do you recall the first time you submitted a brown or a black belt? Well, whatever happens on the mat stays on the mat. That's for sure. Um, I think I do recall the first time I submitted a black belt. Did I often submit higher belts? Yeah, but dude, I've been submitted so much times, man. Like so many fucking times I've been submitted so much that it's not worth me talking about me submitting other people. Like, um, and if you don't do it in competition, it doesn't really count. Like you can submit people, like you can submit some good guys at training, but that's training. Training's training. That's why you shouldn't. If you tap someone at in training, yeah, it's cool. You tap them, but the only thing that matters is competition. If you're going to count your people you've tapped, you know what I mean. Um, so yeah, the answer is: do I recall the first time I submitted? Yeah, I do. Um, when I was a lot like I wrestled and did jiu-jitsu, so yeah, I did tap people that were higher belts than me, but it again, like I said, it doesn't mean anything, man. Like a lot of people have tapped me, man. A lot of people have tapped me. It's not even, yeah. 1 foot at the door says Khabib walked around 96 kilograms outside of fight camp. Yeah, I don't know that. Do you know what I mean? Like I know people say all those things. I don't know. 96 kilograms outside of camp is huge, dude. For a guy, he's not a big guy. Like he's a big guy, but he's not that big. Um, and it would be real fucking hard on his body, man, to come down like that. I don't know. 96 would be. The other thing is your frame's different, right? Your frames are different. It's not just how heavy you are; it's your frame. Because middleweights come down from 96 kilograms to go to 84. Islam versus Gregor Gillespie is the one to make. I think I agree. I would love to see that matchup. Me too, man. Oliver Aikman says, Fab, besides Rob, who do you think has best chance at taking the belt from Izzy? Now, I don't, right now, middleweight, I don't see anyone. other than Rob. Only him and Rob. Sure, can someone catch someone else? Yeah, but I don't see, like, I don't see anyone taking the belt from Israel other than Rob, you know, and I don't see anyone taking the belt from Rob other than Israel. Um, I don't see it. You know what I mean? And sorry, I'm not being disrespectful to him. Christian Lorenz says, "How loud was the crowd when Rob TKO'd Brunson? Loud, very loud." Um, sorry guys, I'm just missing. I'm going to skip a few. One foot at the door says, "How loud were the boos in Brazil after Jared Cannonier beat Anderson?" Can't remember that. I wasn't there. We Are Live says, "I'm all for 165-pound division, but Dana will never do it, or he'll do it a decade later, like when adding women's divisions." Yeah, I mean, I'd be up for seeing it. All I'm saying is I don't want to see the divisions watered down more than what they are, you know? Nicholas Bright says, "Similar to what you said, I've known pro fighters who got knocked out in training by people just training casually. It really doesn't mean anything." Yeah, it doesn't. It really doesn't, you know, it really, really doesn't. I've like, especially the other thing that gets me is when you see pro fighters roll with dudes in jiu-jitsu and jiu-jitsu guy will tap him and then they'll carry on about it, you know, like they'll, you know, tell people about it, or they'll go in a jiu-jitsu comp and they'll put the fucking thing up or tap thing. And it's cool. Like, I get it. If it's done tastefully, I get it, because it's a big name for you and it's something cool on your resume and all of that. But dude, in a fucking real fight, they they'll fucking kill you. You know what I mean? They'll kill you. Um, Mixed Partial Fight says, "In 10 years, it should be 125, 135, 45, 55, 65, 75, 85, 95, 205, 230, 265. Only when there's enough fighters years from now. Don't want to mess it up like boxing did with all the unnecessary weight classes." I agree with everything you said. I do. I just don't want to see exactly like what you said. I don't want to see like guy was a champion at this weight, that weight, this way, and just jumping around different weights and shit. That's not by a lot. But yeah, no, that's very fair. 10 pounds, I think that's very, very fair. And 125, 135, yeah, 100%. I agree with you with that. Shaka Garami says, "Fab, which part of Sydney, of Western Sydney, did I grow up in?" Um, I grew up right next to Cabramatta in the 90s. Like, you could say, I grew up in Ashcroft, a place called Ashcroft, but it's like no one knows where that is. But most people will know where Cabramatta is. So I grew up in the 90s there. Yeah, I think Rob, we are lives. I think Rob will win the division that against Israel. I do think he will. Not, and I'll say this objectively. I think that Rob's got momentum on his side right now. He's got a good style to beat Israel. I don't think it will be easy. I think Israel will bring a bag of tricks with him as well. So it's going to be interesting. They just hit real hard. Both of those guys hit real fucking hard, especially at middleweight. That they're like perfect for middleweight. If Rob went up to light heavyweight, he'd be faster. He'd hit hard. But those guys are big boys, same as Israel. At middleweight, they hit perfect hard, man. They're very, very good, both of them. Uh, One foot out the door says, "Part of why Connor is unlikable, hanging around with douchebags like Dylan Dennis." I don't know where that came from, but I think Dylan Dennis hangs around Connor. Um, okay, sorry, I'm just missing a few. Luis Enrique says, "Thank you for all the amazing interviews and podcasts, fam." No, fuck, man. Thank you, mate, for everything, man. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for commenting. Thank you guys for making this all possible. Because if you guys don't watch, there is no podcast. So I really, really appreciate it, man. I really, really do. So that was really cool. I really do. So I really, really appreciate you guys watching and hanging out like this and having a conversation. It's the best. Thank you, sir. Fab, love the podcast, my brojino. Catch you next time, Fab. Support. Thank you, my friend. I really, really appreciate it, man. I really, really do, man. Like, keeping the show going and watching it and having a good time with you guys is the best, man. I love it. Um, Pat says, second on the gratitude. This is rapidly becoming my favorite MMA podcast. Man, guys, you got to stop. You got to stop, mate. This is so flattering to me, and I love it. Thank you, man. I really appreciate it. One foot out the door says, I'm on vacation. It's 3:19 a.m. Where are you, one foot out the door? What country? Luke says, obviously anything can happen, but I'm not sure I see a solid way for Rob to beat Izzy. Man, it's a fucking, that's going to be a close fight. We'll talk about that more closer to the fight. Um, I don't think there's a lot in it between the two of them. I think even when you watch their first fight, unless you're going to go on the narrative that fucking Rob ran in throwing overhand rights, which isn't what happened. It's not even what happened. So um, there wasn't a lot in that fight. But when you got two guys dynamite in their hands, a guy that can strike the way Israel does, and Rob as well, one of them's going to get hit, and it was Rob that got hit early in the first. So he didn't get a chance to see Rob the evolution of his fight in that particular fight. Um, one foot out the door says East Coast of Canada. Oh, wow. Is Nova Scotia on that side on the East Coast? Mason Klatt says, Fab, what does your jiu-jitsu game look like? Not very good right now. Not very good, mate. No, I'm not I don't know, what does my jiu-jitsu game look like? I don't have like a I'm an opportunist. I'm an opportunist, my friend. I'll just take whatever I can get. Luis Enrique says, thoughts on Corey Sandhagen's style. I don't know why, but he's my favorite fighter to watch by far. I want to fight like the guy. My thoughts on Sandhagen. He's an ex-basketball player, very, very light and very long for his division. He my height and fights at bantamweight. Moves really, really well, moves in and out. He's got good striking, really good striking background, and he can hit you from different angles. Got big knees coming up, knows how to use them. I don't think there's a lot of people that can beat him. To be honest, in that division, I just think that the TJ Dillashaw of old can do certain things with him that will make it difficult for him. You know what I mean? Not necessarily, but I don't know if he'll beat him now. I don't know, but he's fantastic. Um, Luke says, I thought Rob was winning round one until the knockdown. Yeah, it was, man, it was, there's not a big margin of error with those two guys. You know what I mean? There's not. Um, Christian Lorenz says, if the trilogy occurs between Rob and Izzy, would the Melbourne Cricket Ground of 100,000 seats be able to sell out for that fight, in your opinion, massive event? I think, yeah, it would sell out. Yeah, 100%. I think it would sell out. Oliver Ekman says, Fab's dirty, throws elbows and slaps, has doctors write him notes saying he'll die if he cuts weight. That's me, man. One foot out the door says, Nova Scotia is on the East Coast. I'm right next door to them. What the only thing I think about with Nova Scotia is cold, dude. Cold and fishermen. Are there a lot of fishermen there? Is it? Am I right? Am I thinking about the right place? Christian Lorenz says Nova Scotia is East Coast, very cold place where the wallaby would need a jacket and mitts. Dude, I'm here. It's like 13 degrees where I'm at today, and I'm in my Kathmandu jacket, like my thick ass Kathmandu jacket inside my house. Uh, need a jacket and mitts. Says we are live. Fab, why do we never see Rob go for submissions on the ground? What do you mean you haven't seen him go for submissions on the ground? Um, if he hasn't, if he's knocked someone out, which is where it either wins by knockout or thing, it's you know, but sometimes he's takes people's back and he's going for a submission, dude. You know what I mean? He's not trying to have a debate about the Bolivian economy with him. Shaka, and I don't know why you're so angry we are live. Shaka Grami says, who's the best person you've ever grappled with? Again, dude, I've grappled with a lot of good guys, man. And like, I've grappled with guys that you don't even know who they are. And they're fucking really, really good. But I've grappled, like, as in big names, I've grappled with heaps of dudes, man. Like, I've grappled with Bushesha, with Kavaka. Kavaka gave me my blue belt. Thiago Abreu, Nivaldo Oliveira. Who else? a lot of good guys, man, like heaps, and they're fucking all better than me, like not even close. Um, Sergio Pena's son, Eduardo Pena, is a little guy, man. He's gonna, when he gets to the UFC, Eduardo Pena, he's gonna kill people. All American wrestler, BJJ black belt, just a fucking freak. Um, I don't know, man, heaps. But I've got friends that you never know who they are. There's a guy, shout out to this dude who grappled with him since he was a white belt. His name's Aston Grant. I'm not sure where he's teaching jiu-jitsu now. Doesn't compete a lot, whatever. Probably about 30 years old, 31 years old now. And dude, he can grapple, man. Good black belt. Never heard of him. No one would have heard of him, but he can grapple. You know what I mean? There's so many of those guys. Um, Shaka Garami says, shout out to Sacred Heart in Cabramatta also. Yes, sir. TJ is a beast of a striker. I love watching the snake. He is a beast, man. We Are Live says, it ain't coming to Australasia, guys. Dana said so. We're in fucking lockdown right now. You know what I mean? 1 foot at the door says, look at how Israel got KO'd in kickboxing. He incorporated the way he leans back to throw a hook. Yeah, but dude, you got to look at how he got knocked out, who he got knocked out by is Alex Pereira. He didn't get knocked out by, a nobody. Pat says, I don't exactly like the bloke, but TJ's footwork feels like something definitely worth cognizance and respect. I don't think enough to say that with complete confidence, though, to be honest. The way he moves, man, he's very, very smart, man. He's very slick. He moves, he changes stances, he picks his shots. He's very good. His footwork, everything is very good. Doug Smith says, at the Fair One podcast, I want to see Islam versus Dariush next. What do you think? We spoke about that earlier. I think that Islam versus Dariush would be a crazy fight, be a massive test for Islam. Very, very big test. Dariush's jiu-jitsu is high level. High level. He's won world titles in jiu-jitsu, and I think he can give a big, big headache to Islam. On the feet, I'd say they're about even, so I'd be really curious to see how that fight goes. Mixed partial fight says, how do you think Usman will do a middleweight considering Rob was at welterweight before, then moved up to middleweight to beat Romero, Souza, Brunson, etc. All of them. Do you think Usman could do that? I've seen Usman in real life a few times. And this is, again, people get caught up in the weight. He walks around at this weight, but his frame compared to like Rob and Israel and that, he's a smaller guy. He's a welterweight guy for fighting. For wrestling, yeah, he wrestles at 84 kilograms and everything, but he's got that down pat, and his style, the way he fights, he gets to be the bigger, stronger guy. He kind of has has a mechanical advantage at 170 that he doesn't have at 185. It's going to be much harder for him to be able to do what he does, the way he fights, to fight like that at 185. It doesn't mean that he can't. It doesn't mean that he can't. Rob was a young guy that was growing out of 170. He shouldn't have been at 170 towards the end. He was growing out of 170, so he had to go to 185. Usman's in his late 30s, mid to late 30s. He's not like, he'd be going up in weight, not because he's a growing guy, just because he was going up in weight. He's not a particularly fast striker, so he's not taking that up into a division where Rob was fast at welterweight, and at middleweight he was fastest. Same as Gastelum. Gastelum was fast at welterweight. At middleweight, one of the fastest. But I think Rob's the fastest in the way he moves, like in and out, blitz from point A to point B. He's very fast. Usman doesn't fight like that. Would he beat the fuck out of some people at 185? Yes, he would. He'd beat up a lot of people at 185. I just think the upper echelons is a bit difficult for him. Like Israel and Rob are very difficult for him to fight. It's not the best style, and he loses that mechanical advantage. The same way, like when people have spoken about Usman and Khabib. right? Like again, like that mechanical advantage that Khabib has, where he is the bigger guy and he is able to impose that on these 155 guys. He won't have that at 170. He won't have that exact same thing. Now, can he? He could. I mean, he's a fantastic fighter, so he could still win. But he doesn't have the advantage that he does. That's all it is. There's a reason why these guys are cutting down that weight. So that's how I see that. I don't see Rob's weight going up in weight was different reason to why Usman would go up now and at different times in their career as well. Um, Christian Lorenz says, "Have you ever seen the 'I'm just waiting for mate' meme video online?" I have not, sir. I have not. One foot at the door says, "There's a little island called Shedyak Island covered in purple Phoenician seashells." Okay. Christian Lorenz says, "Are the savage days of Jeremy Stevens coming to an end?" Again, like I said before, I think that he's a great fighter, but for the reputation that he has as a knockout artist, he's got relatively few knockouts to his name. Um, so okay. One foot at the door says 70 plus kickboxing, 1 KO loss. Yeah, 100%. That's what I'm saying. Like he doesn't, it's not like he gets knocked out. Like I don't know why that was brought up that way. We Are Live says, yeah, I think that'll be the fight. Islam versus Dariush, Dagestani handcuff versus Jiu-Jitsu ankle picker. Man, that's going to be an interesting fight, man. I don't know who I'd favor. I don't know who I'd favor. But I will tell you this. If Islam steamrolls Dariush, I'll be impressed. Luis Enrique says, so hyped for TJ versus Sandhagen. High level striking matchup. The stance switches and feints and fakes are going to be amazing. They are, but I don't know what TJ we're going to see. I don't know if age has gotten the better of him. I don't know what he's going to look like without EPO and without all the other drugs. I don't know any and all of that stuff. The other thing that TJ has and is very good is he can come in with level changes and wrestling offense and different things to make things difficult for Sandhagen. I don't know. I think that right now the Sandhagen has probably the momentum as well behind him. One foot out the door says allegedly Sandhagen used to bully TJ at Alpha Male. But bully, I'm assuming you mean that he used to get the better of him in sparring. Could be, but they said the same thing with Gabrandt and and TJ, which I don't doubt that either one of those guys would get the better of TJ in sparring, but that doesn't mean anything, dude. That does not mean anything. I've seen heaps of guys, heaps of guys not do well at training in all sorts of different sports, and then come fight night, it's a different animal, and it's different. It's got nothing to do with it. Dude, I've seen that in rugby league. Guys that don't train that well, they play. You play like modified games of rugby league, and this I'm talking about working in first grade. I'm not going to put the players' names out there, and I watch the guys, and I think that can't be so and so that I watched play on fucking TV. That can't be him, you know. And lo and behold, it is. And he doesn't look like the guy. But then I see him play come game night, different animal. And I've seen that in MMA and grappling more times than I could count. More times than I could count. I've seen guys, I'm not going to put their names or anything, but I've seen guys that are big names, high level, blah, blah, blah. And you look at him and you're like, dude, this guy he's going to get killed. Then you see him in the ring or in the cage and it's a different animal. So it doesn't really mean anything. Um, Okay, Mason Klatt says, crazy to think about Frankie Edgar with a bantamweight frame still finding a way to win at 155. Him and Aldo, dude. He and Aldo, don't forget, they had a massive rivalry at 155 as well. They're fucking bantamweights as they're getting older. So you start to think these guys could have been fighting at bantamweight before. Like, I think Aldo could have been best ever bantamweight, like hands down. He could have been like the Anderson Silva of bantamweights because he was a freak of nature at featherweight, but he was still like he's a guy that shocked me how small he was. I saw him in real life, and he was like a tiny little guy. And I always, after that, like I always thought, why doesn't this guy fight at featherweight, at bantamweight? When I saw him, he was like a small guy, man. I'm impressed because when you see him in the cage, he always looks like the bigger, stronger, meaner dude, but he's a small guy, dude. Mixed Partial Fart says, I completely agree with your point about the body type mattering and whether they're currently growing or not. Makes complete sense. Usman is perfect at 170. He's huge for 170. So 185, he would be small. Yeah, it's different. Yeah, you're right. Like you can have the other thing, there's things like, for example, I I've spoken to Israel, shook hands with Israel. His hands are like dinner plates, man. He's got massive fucking hands. He's like he's tall. Like I'm 5'11", like 6 foot around there. And when I was talking to him, I'm looking up, like I'm looking up at him. Like he's tall, he's broad, he's a big dude. Like when you're looking at him, you're like, holy shit, this guy's big. He doesn't look that big. And Eli was with me as well. Like because I said to him, watch when you see him, when you're up close, have a look at him. Like he's like his legs muscular, he's big, tall guy. He looks skinny if you don't know things. Like it's like when you watch in the NBA, if you watch Steph Curry, you go, he's a little guy, blah, blah, blah. If you saw Steph Curry in real life, he's way taller than you'd think he'd be. He's broad, he's a big athletic dude, and that's what Israel is. Um, and so Usman's and Rob is the same. Like Rob, when you see him on TV, you might think he's a small middleweight, whatever. But which he's not. When you near him, like his knees are thick, his legs, calves, bum, feet, hands, huge. He's a big fucking islander, you know. Torso is thick. Like he's not massively broad, Rob. He's not massively broad, but he's very thick this way. You know, big fucking skull, like a big head. So Usman's not like that. He's not as big as them frame wise. You know, he's very muscular, but he's not as big as them frame wise. So it's hard as well going up into a division where he was trying to fight a fight against Rob or and Israel that Romero couldn't do with his style, and he's slower than Romero, you know. And I'm not bagging him because I think what he does at 170 is fucking good, and I don't see anyone beating him at 170. You know, not very hard because at 170 he's got his striking down pat. He knows what to do, finds the right angles, throws his hands, and then pushes you up against the cage and works on your spleen, and you can't get him off. I don't see him being able to do that at 185. Salah says, "Am I wrong in thinking Sandhagen is a horrible stylistic matchup for Peter? He attacks the body, has a high volume, and likes throwing knees, which Peter got caught by versus Aljo. Tailor-made beat Peter, in my opinion." Yeah, I agree. Sandhagen is a fucking hard matchup for anyone. A really hard matchup. High level striker. Peter Yan's a high level striker. That's gonna be a tough one. I agree with you. We Are Live says, I was buttered for Jeremy's loss on the weekend. Mixed Partial Fart says, compared to like a Romero, especially, or a Brunson, yeah. Like when you start seeing them, you go, oh, okay, yeah, he's not, it's not going to be all easy for him at 185. Thoughts on Tuivasa's badass KO? In fairness, I called Bam Bam winning that fight by a KO. We Are Live says, I thought I was happy for him, but like I thought he was going to knock Greg Hardy out. We Are Live says, yeah, great fights this weekend. The one past or the one coming? Reem Raw says, Dariush is the toughest fight for Islam in the top 10. I feel like Dariush can unlock the things that Islam hasn't shown us yet. I think Dariush is a tough fight, but I think he's not the toughest in the top 10 because I think all those guys are tough fights for Islam. Pip Dennison says, good Avo Hefe, sorry, late again. Stay warm, brother. Thank you, sir. Sorry, I'm trying to find where I was at. Just kind of missed a few. We Are Live says, I'm not liking these upcoming pay-per-views. Not much getting me excited after the Epic Connor fight week. Joe Schmo says, I reckon we're going to get a post-USADA TJ. Could be. 1 foot out the door says, the comment on Bully is to highlight how much pressure is on TJ versus how much of a role Sandhagen is on. Yes, agreed. TJ definitely can. Luis Enrique says this. TJ definitely can, with a good game plan and discipline, make it a boring fight and hold and beat Sandhagen on the ground. Although maybe Frankie Edgar thought the same thing. But TJ, this is what I'm saying. It's a big enigma to me. I don't know what he's going to look like coming into this fight. I don't know. He's been 2 years off, missed his prime. The lighter weights don't age as well as the heavier weights, and he's a guy that relies on reflexes and speed. I don't know how all of that's going to be affected. I don't know. He's not going to try and wrestle fuck Sandhagen. He might throw a takedown in there and again, but he's not going to do that. That's not going to be his major thing. Having said that, technically, I think he can do a lot of stuff to make things difficult for Sandhagen. Oliver Ekman says, dude, the Volk pay-per-view is popping. Volk, Ortega, Nick Diaz versus Robbie Lawler. That doesn't get you pumped? It does. Luke says, I personally think TJ was always on some sort of PED, but he only tested positive for EPO in his fight at 125. All of his other tests came back clean. Yeah, I've spoken about it already earlier in the thinger. Mixed Partial Fight says, in my opinion, Aldo would have destroyed Cruz back in the day if he went to Bantamweight while Cruz was champ and he was champ at Featherweight. Yeah, and the thing is, the style of Cruz, if he had gone down to fight Cruz, the style of Cruz and the style of Aldo match up really well for Aldo. Aldo will kick the shit out of those legs. You get what I mean? To stop the movement of Cruz. So yeah, it would have been that. I think I would have backed Aldo to win that fight. One foot at the door says, imagine how big of a favorite Peter Yan will be against Aljo. Only a banana peel can screw up that bet. You got to remember, dude. You got to remember that Aljo is a jumping jack. He throws knees and kicks in all different ways and directions. So he could catch him. He could definitely catch him with something. Mason Klatt says, for as dominant Islam was in the fight, I did get a little worried and was getting leg locked. I wonder if he's not as experienced in the leg lock game like Oliveira and Dariush are. He was pretty calm in there though. He was pretty calm, and it seems to be Moises' thing as well, the legs. But he was pretty calm the way he did that. He cleared the leg and he wasn't like panicking or anything. Lindsay Miller says Islam didn't say he didn't want Benil. He said he wanted someone 4 to 7 next and then the belt. Oh well, there you go. you know. Yeah, I never heard him say I don't want to fight someone. I've never really heard anyone. One foot out the door says, was he even allowed to spar getting the 2-year ban? Yeah, like you can train. You can't not train. You can spar and everything. Lindsay Miller says, Islam said he was ready for anyone. He called out Chandler, who was working the ESPN desk. Him and Chandler, mate. Him and Chandler, that would be interesting, man. Rogue Strummer says, TJ's wrestling is not as good as Aljamain and nowhere close to as athletic. I think he'll have trouble closing distance against Corey without getting clipped. Like I said, I don't know today. I don't know today because I haven't seen him. TJ from before, I would have backed against Corey. We Are Live says TJ has a team of scientists and doctors like Tom Brady. Who's Chinese, Oliver? Oh, and We Are Live. Okay, I'm just going to skip through a few. Jake Cake says, will I ever get back in the corner of Rob again one day? Just cornering, that's not allowed. Being at events too, maybe. What's one foot at the door? NFL. Okay. No, I don't think so, man. We haven't worked together for like 2 years or maybe a year and a half, and I think we've both moved in our separate ways, and it's time that other people get over it too, man. Luis Enrique says 100% agree about TJ. We don't know. 2 years and a half is a long time. That's what I mean. It's a massive enigma to me, and I think at this point, I favor Sandhagen because he's the one that's active. He's the one with momentum. Nicholas Bright says, actual quote from his interview was, Beneil Dariush is a really good fighter. If they give me Beneil, it's a good fight. He's a nice guy. I know him a little bit. Yeah. I never thought that he'd say, nah, he's too good for me. USADA Band says, Nicholas Bright, but he's number 3. It's a big step up for me too. He's tougher than all the 3 guys I called out. Yeah, that's not saying that he doesn't think. We Are Live says, what month do you predict Rob vs. Izzy 2? I have no idea. Like, none, 0. September, maybe. One Foot Out the Door says, I meant the TJ situation. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know about the other thing. I don't know when, like, if it's going to be maybe September. If I had to guess, I'd say September. But yeah, guys, thank you so much for everything, man. I'm going to head off now. I really, really appreciate it, man. I really appreciate you guys being on here and, having the chat and everything and keeping the podcast going. It was heaps of fun. I really enjoy doing these. And, man, thank you so much, man. Just if you haven't already, please hit the like and subscribe, hit the notification bell, so you get all the notifications. And, man, I really, 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 really appreciate it. And, without you guys, there is no show, man. So thank you so much, man. Lots of love. Big hugs to all of you. And today, I'm going to hit my outro music. I've never done the outro before, so pretty exciting stuff, guys. Thank you so much.